I just turned 52 years old, and maybe it's the age, maybe it's the fact that the world does not feel like it's in the best place right now. But I find myself reflecting on the good old days, right? The good old days. And I think for a lot of us, that's when we were teenagers, probably when we were younger, and we had lots of friends, and we had very little responsibility, and our bills were covered for us, and we really just had to go to school and hang out and enjoy life, right? At least that was my experience. I know not everybody's lucky enough to have that experience when they're young, but I had both my parents. I lived in a middle class home in suburbia, and I went to nice schools where there wasn't a lot of violence, and I lived in fairly safe neighborhoods. So I know I was lucky in that regard. Um, and as I started thinking back on my life over the last couple weeks approaching my birthday, Um, I thought it would be a cool project because obviously video making is my hobby and it's something I really enjoy doing. I thought it would be interesting to sort of make an autobiography on my life up to this point. Now, not a full scale autobiography, but I just thought it would be cool to revisit some of the key, like the places that were tied to key moments of my life. And I lived in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. That's where I was born and raised. And I lived there basically uh, for a good 25 plus years of my life. Um, I moved around a little bit, but I was always in that area. I moved to Niagara Falls and I was there for a while. And it was in around my mid 30s that I moved up to the greater Hamilton area, originally to Burlington for a job there as a food service manager at a retirement home. And then eventually here to Hamilton, just because the rental prices were much better. And I've been in Hamilton for the last 14 years. This is now where I call home. Um, and I haven't, because I left St. Catharines so many years ago. I mean, I go back to St. Catharines. My parents still live there in the house that I was born and raised in. But when I go back to St. Catharines, I don't necessarily go back to like places where I used to hang out with my friends or my old schools or anything like that. So I haven't seen these places in a long time. And I thought it would be interesting to go back over the next couple of weeks and revisit some of these places, go to Niagara Falls and revisit some of the places that were important to me there, and just sort of document this for myself. Really, the audience for this is me. This is something I want to be able to look back on and hopefully trigger all those memories. I find that's why I've recorded all the road trips that my wife and I have done, and why I record so much of my life and put it in video form, because I find that really helps to trigger memories and bring me back to that moment. And I'm a pretty nostalgic person, so a little context as to when I'm making this video. So as I mentioned, I just turned 52. It is 2026. It is the spring. And right now, the world doesn't feel great. There's always threats, right? There's always the news media is always saying like, oh, this bad thing's about to happen and this bad thing. But right now, a lot of the discussion is around AI, artificial intelligence, the fact that they've developed this uh, computer technology where it's on the verge of, it seems now like a sentient being. You can ask an AI chatbot a question and it will talk to you as if you're talking to a person. And there's a lot of talk about all the jobs that will be displaced with this technology, and that's a problem. Um, we're in the middle of sort of a trade war, if you will, with our closest neighbor, the United States, which has caused a lot of economic uncertainty here in Canada. So it's right now it's harder to find a job, and your dollar does not go as far. There's still inflation left from the pandemic a few years ago, so the price of groceries is very high. There's also a war in the Middle East that has blocked off oil shipments, so gas prices are through the roof, like fuel prices. So it costs more to fill your vehicle, it costs more to fill your belly, it costs more for rent, and job pay, like wages, have not kept up with this inflation. So that just gives you a bit of context and why I might be looking back into the past. Um, Another thing, I got the Intellivision. So this was a competitor to Atari and ColecoVision. These were like the first sort of home console like gaming platforms back in the 80s. And recently, Atari, actually, who owns Mattel now, or the rights to Intellivision, put out an Intellivision Sprint, it's called. And it basically looks like the Intellivision. It looks like the old 80s console exactly, but now it comes preloaded. So instead of cartridges that you put in, it comes preloaded with all the games inside of there. So I got that for my birthday from my wife. So thank you. Even though we're separated, we're still good friends, and she hooked me up and spent the night playing it. So that's also mixed in with this nostalgic feeling, right? It brought me back to when I was 12 years old playing video games in my parents' basement on a Saturday morning before I would head out for the afternoon outside, right? The outside world. That's what we did when I was a kid. We would play outside. We would go and play in the local trails near my house. We would run around the neighborhood playing war. We would swim. My parents had an in-ground pool when I was a kid. We would swim. You'd have to go over to your friend's house and knock on the door and say, is so and so home? But we were in the real world. We were out. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. None of that stuff existed. So it does feel like it was a simpler time, and I'm glad that I grew up in that area, or that era, I should say. But yeah, so I'm embarking on this journey today where I'm actually heading back to St. Catharines to see my parents. My dad and I share the same birthday, and my mom's this month. So we all get together in April to celebrate our birthday. And before I head down to my parents' place, I'm going to do a little tour of some of the places in St. Catharines that were meaningful to me. The Port Dalhousie area, where there was a lot of bars and a beach. So we spent a lot of time as a kid. I spent a lot of time down there hanging out at the beach. They used to have like a fair that would come through with carnival rides, and that was really an important time every summer. And all the bars that I went to when I was in my late teens. And then I'm going to go revisit all of my old schools, my elementary school, my middle school, and my high school. And let's see how things have changed or maybe stayed the same. So let's get this ball rolling on this little project and this journey down memory lane. I'm here at our first stop, Port Dalhousie in St. Catharines. And yeah, written Port Dalhousie, like Port Dalhousie University, but here in St. Kitts, as it's known, we called it Port Dalhousie. And this was the area when I was young where you would come down and go to the bars. And sadly, it's looking a little run down in some of the areas. Up here on the corner, we had Port Mansion. There was Lakeside, which was one of the biggest bars with an enormous party patio, and Lions Club, which had a lot of live music. And you would come down here on a Friday or Saturday night and you would party your heart out. I'm a little bummed that it's so foggy and I'm not able to get kind of the clips that I wanted to get, but in another way, it's okay. I'm going to actually use the internet for something positive, and I'm going to look up some old shots of Port Dalhousie in its heyday when I was young, because that's really the memories that I want. This doesn't look the way it looked when I was younger, so not too concerned, because this isn't how my memories are attached. So let's take a look at a few clips from back in the day here in Port Dalhousie, St. Catharines. The second stop on my trip down memory lane, and I'm here at, well, what used to be called Municipal Beach and is now apparently Sunset Beach. Man, The beach is basically just over down there, and there used to be a ball hockey rink just on the other side, and we would walk down here sometimes in the summer, which was about a 2-hour walk from my parents' place, or we'd get a ride with some friends. But this was the place where all the beach parties would happen. And beach parties would only last so long because then police would be called. They'd show up and people would start running. There are trails over there that people would scatter through, but again, I couldn't tell you how many blurry nights I spent here as a young teenager at Municipal Beach, and now apparently Sunset Beach, and it's closed. So again, can't really recognize anything from when I was a kid, sadly. It's all changed so much, but I guess that's what time does, right? It's another crazy trip for sure. This is my elementary school. This is Lincoln Centennial, home of the Lincoln Lions, and I can see it is still home of the Lincoln Lions. And this was 1 to 6, and then I went to Dalewood, which was 7 and 8. So that was a unique experience too. That's where I'm going to head to next. But man, so many memories of this school. Getting bullied at some points as well. But some of my best friends from when I was a kid, Jason Bolton, Troy Townsley, met them at this school. And I'm going to see if I can just walk around the back of the school because, you know, in elementary school, you spend a lot of time outside playing with your friends, phys ed classes, all of that stuff. So I'm going to see if I can take a little peek around the back of the school and see the field that I spend a lot of time in. Let's go check that out. Well, out of all the schools, this one more or less looks the same, except for the fact that it now says French Immersion School. So this is Dalewood. This, at least when I went to school here, this was grades 7 and 8 only. And unique experience. I don't think everybody gets to go to, I think a lot of elementary schools go from like kindergarten to grade 8, and then you move on to high school, at least here in Canada. But this was very unique because in this area, Lincoln Centennial, which was my elementary school, went 1 to 6, then 7, 8 here, and then Governor Simcoe, my high school, wasn't very far from here either. So they're all sort of in the same area. And it was really cool to spend 2 years with kids that were generally all your age. And this is where I met one of my closest friends ever, Rob Fraser, who's still my friend to this day. And just... man, so many memories. I started skateboarding while I went to this school. And on the other side of the park over here used to be some tennis courts. I'm guessing maybe they're still there. We'll go take a peek. But we would go cross this creek and then we would go over and just skate during the whole lunch hour. So this was a pivotal point in my life. Man, just so many memories, so many, you know, all the kids I went to school with that I haven't seen in years. They're all flooding back in my memory here. And yeah, just a unique experience to spend a couple of years with kids my own age, right in that sweet spot, right? Just before high school, as you're coming into your teen years and you're sort of discovering who you are and your personality. Wow. Good old Dalewood. Okay, let's take a quick walk around and check out the school. This one's weird. This one is weird. I have not been back here since I went to high school here. So this is Governor Simcoe, and this is where I went to high school. And this is the main entrance. This is a new sign, but other than that, this all looks fairly similar. Some new planters out front, but this is more or less the way it was. This is kind of new in here, this drive. So it used to just come in and around, and you would get dropped off and go in, and the office was right there. I'm sure it still is. Man, I'm sure all of us have deep ties to our high school. This is where we probably started dating and found some of our lifelong friends. So, man, this is a crazy one. So I'm going to take a little walk around and check out some of the areas, including what we called the smoke hole over there on the other side of the cafeteria, where we would all go out and smoke. In high school, I smoked cigarettes. Thankfully, I quit right after high school, but yeah, Governor Simcoe Secondary School. Well, I suppose any good trip down memory lane should start at the beginning, and there is no closer to the beginning than here. This is the house I grew up in. My parents still live here, so this was the neighborhood I grew up in. We had an in-ground pool when I was a kid, so most of my summers had friends over swimming, playing video games on the television in the basement. All of my closest friends were in this neighborhood, and my schools, Lincoln Centennial, my elementary school, Dalewood, and Governor Simcoe, my high school, all of the schools were within about a 15-minute bike ride of this place. And back in the day, you would ride your bike or walk to school. That's how it happened. By the time I got to high school, I would take the bus often, but more or less, this has been the place I spent the first part of my life. I lived here at home until I was just about 24, and then I moved out. So yeah, basically half of my life up till this point was spent right here in my family home. And I'm here to visit my parents, so I'm going to go in and say hi.
All right, this is my parents' backyard where I grew up, still in the same home for like 45, 50 years, something like that. And used to have a nice big in-ground pool in the back, and that was my ramp that we nicknamed Ragin' Ryan's. So had that half pipe for about 10 years. Loved it. Loved having a ramp in my backyard. But I also had a bunch of ramps I would take out front. So this is out front of my parents' house. And they were also kind enough to have me, or allow me to have a bunch of ramps tucked over beside the garage. This, me and my buddy Matt Wagner doing street plants out front. And I always had a variety of ramps that I could pull out, such as this little slider box, and you can see a bigger jump ramp sitting right there. And I would take these things out, all my friends would come over, and we would head out for a good skate. This is downtown St. Catharines, so St. Paul Street, kind of the main strip where I spent a lot of time when I was younger. And this is a little further down, the Pony Mini Mart. And right around the corner was the original Sud Skates skate shop where I used to hang out, so I'd go and get my snacks and drinks over there at the Pony Mini Mart. And this was the Red Hot Chili Pepper, where I got my first cooking job with my buddy Rob. And I was an appy cook there, so I worked in the pantry making like nachos and quesadillas and stuff like that. And then I eventually worked my way up to a line cook, and truly enjoyed that. That was sort of the jump-off point for my cooking career. And I also spent a lot of time skateboarding downtown St. Catharines. This was the Cultures Bank, we called it. Out front of Cultures was a little restaurant that you could go to. This is the back of the library, and the parking lot dropped down, so you could ollie over this highway barrier pretty easy from the high to low. These were the main stairs that everybody skated right in the front of the library, and you had to be quick because you get kicked out pretty quick there. And then there was a larger set in the back there. Very tricky run up, and it landed sort of on a slope downhill, so not a lot of people did that. That took me quite a few tries that day. That was a big set, big ollie that day. And let's check out a little bit of street skating from downtown St. Catharines back in around 2001. Well, this seems like as good a time as any to transition to the different places I've lived. This was my first apartment that I had on my own, and my mom actually got this place for me while I was touring through the US so that when I came back from tour, I would have a place to live. And this is out on St. Paul Street West, just outside of downtown St. Catharines, and I lived there with this dude. This was Spare, my dog, my first dog I had on my own. And I lived there with Spare for maybe a year and a half, and then I moved here. This was on Russell Avenue in St. Catharines, and I lived here with Claire. Claire was a long-term girlfriend. We were together more or less for about 5 years or so, and we broke up. She moved out, and then my buddy Glenn moved in, and I lived there with Glenn, and his girlfriend used to come and hang out, and his girlfriend would bring her friend, Stephanie. And that's how I met my next girlfriend that I lived with for quite a while. And Stephanie and I lived here at 56 Windward. This is also in St. Catharines. This is the opposite end of St. Catharines now. And we had that little apartment you can see there on the ground floor. And I really liked it here. It was right across the street from my buddy Chris's place. And I just enjoyed living there. And Steph and I lived there for about 3 years or so until we also broke up and she moved out west, which is where her family was from. And unfortunately, I couldn't take care of Spare, so I had to rehome him. And then I moved here to Toronto. So I was touring and got along really well with a few of the guys on tour that had this place in Toronto. And they said, hey, why don't you move up here with us? And we have a room open right now. So that's where I moved. So back in around 2001, I think, I moved to Toronto and I stayed here with Bruce and Kevin for about 2 years. And then Kevin moved out and then Bruce and I didn't get along so well. So off we go again. Time to transition to a new life. And I moved to Niagara Falls. And this is Hennepin Court or Hennepin Crescent, and I lived here with my girlfriend, Holly. So Holly and I had known each other for quite a while. We met at a call center years before this, and we reconnected while I was in Toronto, started dating, and then we moved to the Falls together here. And there's a little shot of inside of our apartment with Holly's cat, who I accidentally knocked out of the window. The screen popped out, and out she went, but she was okay. Landed on all fours, and all's good. Then I moved to this place. Holly and I broke up. That's the way things go. She also moved out west, which is where her family lived. So deja vu, right? And then I moved to this place right above Nearly New. I lived here for about 3 years on my own. I absolutely loved it. Had a little one-bedroom apartment up there. And in the evenings, I could make as much noise as I wanted because I was right on top of the store and they would close. And I was dating Lee while I was living here. And Lee was very special to me. Here's a shot of the back of the apartment, the fire escape where I actually hung out a lot and would watch the sun go down. And there's my little truck, my little Ford Ranger, my 87 Ford Ranger that I had for quite a while. And I absolutely loved that truck. And I enjoyed living there. That was a great time, and I met a lot of good friends in Niagara Falls, including my buddy Keith and George, who I'm friends with to this day. So yeah, way to go, Niagara Falls. You rocked. Enjoyed my time there very much. After working at a number of restaurants in Niagara Falls, I got a position at a retirement residence as a food service manager up in Burlington. So I moved up here, and my buddy Keith was working in Oakville at the time, so we decided to be roommates. It was closer for him, and we got this place on Windward Avenue. After about 2 years, it was going great, and then I started dating a girl named Laura, and this is our little bulldog, Lola, and Laura moved up with me and lived with Keith and I for a little while until a townhouse right across the hall opened up, and then Laura and I decided it was time to get our place together, and we moved in there together. And I was with Laura for about 3 years. And again, that seems to be the magic number for quite a while. Unfortunately, Laura and I were just not a great match. And after that, I met and moved in with my wife, Chris. So technically, I was living on my own first here on Markland Street. So I had a tiny little one-bedroom apartment. And after about 3 months of living there, Chris moved in with me. And we used to call it our little tiny cabin in the city because it was this really tiny one-bedroom apartment. And then her friend actually lived across the street in the apartment buildings right here. And he said that one of the 2 bedrooms was coming up for rent, and he put in a good word for us, and we ended up moving directly across the street. And we stayed there for about 3 years until we ended up buying our house up here on the mountain, as they say, but it's just the escarpment here in Hamilton, and this is where I still live to this day with her.
Our first stop today after St. Catharines is Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls has played a huge role in my life. When I was younger, Niagara Falls is about a 20-minute drive from St. Catharines. So as soon as any of my group of friends got their license, this is where we would come. It just seemed exotic to us back then, right? Like, this is Clifton Hill that I'm standing on now, so a pretty famous spot. It's kind of the heart of the tourist attraction here in Niagara Falls. So you've got, all the classic stuff like fun houses, and over here behind me, there's a tower there that says casino, but that used to be the Maple Leaf Village Tower. So Maple Leaf Village was like a little amusement park, had some little tiny roller coasters and a Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff. So my friends and I would come down here a few nights a week sometimes, but definitely on a Friday or Saturday when it was busy. We would go skateboarding at all the cool skate spots here in Niagara Falls that seemed so, just foreign to us and exotic. And then we would go and try and talk to girls over at the Maple Leaf Village amusement park. So this place definitely played a huge role in my life growing up. And then I ended up moving back here. One of my first jobs, actually as a teenager, was here in Niagara Falls, down here on the corner at a place that's now gone. It's now a whole bunch of stuff. It's a Ruby Tuesday. It's a couple of restaurants, but it used to be called the Steak and Burger. And I worked there basically cleaning up, kind of mopping the floor, and just sort of general work around the restaurant. I wasn't cooking there yet. I wasn't cooking yet, I should say. But a lot of time spent down here, a lot of time on Clifton Hill, and this was just kind of the place to come and hang out in our area for teenagers on a Friday or a Saturday night. You would cruise up and down the strip and catcall girls like a bunch of jerks, a bunch of teenage jerks. And yeah, it's just an exotic place, and in the summer this place just lit up. And then later, when I moved back here, I went to school at Niagara College for culinary arts, and I had a little apartment over on Queen Street that we're going to head over to next. But a lot of days of the week back then I used to drink a lot, unfortunately, and I would grab a Mickey of some kind of alcohol, and I would walk down here because it was about a 15-minute walk, and I'd bring my guitar and I'd go sit in the park and sip whiskey and drink for the evening, playing guitar and just people watching. If you like people watching, when the season is on, this is the place to be. And then also when I became a dog trainer, I used to bring dogs I was training down here for distraction proofing. And even Ollie here, when I first got Ollie, I brought him down here. So all 3 of our dogs were trained down here because of all the amazing distraction proofing it provided, and good socialization. You could get your dog pet by 100 people in about an hour. But yeah, this place here has had a lot of meaning to me. This is the park where I used to come and hang out with my guitar. And now we're going to head down to the infamous Niagara Falls and check that out. Our next stop here in Niagara Falls is one of the first places I worked when I moved here. That's the Embassy Suites Hotel, and inside is the Keg. So when I moved back from Toronto into this area, I had my bartender's certification. I had just gotten that from the Ontario School of Bartending in Toronto. And when I moved back, there was a job fair for a new restaurant opening up here. And when I went, they said, "Hey man, you got a lot of cooking experience on the old resume here. How would you like to work in the kitchen?" And it wasn't my first pick. I had worked in kitchens for years and years, but I needed a job, so I took it. And within about a month and a half, I'd worked myself up from starting as an appy cook to first cook, which is like their grill cook there, and assistant kitchen manager, which led me back into cooking and then led to going back to school at Niagara College to get my chef papers and my apprenticeship at Queenston Heights Restaurant, where I ended up working there as a chef de partie for many years. And that's going to be our next stop, off to Queenston Heights Restaurant. So this place here, Queenston Heights Restaurant, definitely played a big role in my life. I met one of my closest friends, Dave, who eventually ended up moving to England. And unfortunately, I don't stay in touch with Dave anymore, but he was a great friend while I was here in Niagara Falls. And I worked here under Chef Albert Wiersma. And I absolutely loved working at Queenston Heights. I would work here in the evenings. I was the chef de partie. I would basically run the kitchen in the evenings. Wonderful experience. This is really where I learned how to be a chef. This is where I worked out most of my apprenticeship. I did work at a few places in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but this was the main place I worked until I got a job managing kitchens in retirement homes for a company called Allegro, which is eventually how I ended up working out of the cooking industry and moving on to other things, including framing houses, finish carpentry, working at Mountain Equipment Co-op, an outdoor store, first as floor staff, and then moving my way up to their event coordinator. Then from there to dog training, running my own business for the last 10 years, and now where I'm at now, working my way into the fitness industry. But yeah, huge part of my life was spent here. 3 or 4 years cooking away, great people, and I absolutely loved my time here at Queenston Heights Restaurant in Niagara Falls. This is definitely a very strong memory for me. So this was my apartment that I lived in Niagara Falls for quite a while. It's that one on the second floor balcony there by the pink chair with the 2 windows. And I spent a lot of time sitting out there, and I used to cross over to the roof here at the insurance company, and I would just hang out on the roof sometimes. The bus terminal is just over there, and I would watch people coming in and wonder what parts of the country they were coming in from. Also, this was a pretty strong prostitution area, so I would see the prostitutes out on the street here and cars coming by and picking them up. This is downtown Niagara Falls, and not the tourist area. That is not downtown. This is actual downtown. And downtown Niagara Falls, a little bit shady, And I got to say, I loved living here. It was cheap. I lived here on my own for a number of years while I went to culinary school. And there was a bar next door that I never went to because it was just low-key, crazy. Yeah, not my thing. And I lived above this thrift store, and in the evening the thrift store would close, and I had no neighbors below me, so it was great. I'd have friends over, we'd jam, we could make as much noise as we want, and nobody really cared. So yeah, this was my place here on Queen Street in Niagara Falls, and then my good buddy George ended up taking over the rental from me and moved in after I moved out, and he was here for a number of years. So many memories tied to this place. I was here for quite a while, and on my own here in Niagara Falls. So yeah, what can I say? Niagara Falls was wonderful to me, and I truly enjoyed my time here. My last stop here in Niagara Falls, Dave McMahon's Dog Training Academy. And I spent a year and a half here learning the fundamentals of how to train dogs. And this is where I trained Chickpea, and she was part of my apprenticeship and a huge part of my life and my business. And in the end, sadly, I didn't see eye to eye with Dave on all of his methods on how to train dogs. So I did end up leaving the dog school, which was the plan all along anyway, in order to start my own business. But I ended up leaving a little sooner than I had planned. And so many memories tied to this place. Over in the back here, this little grassy fenced in area, we used to hold outdoor classes and also outdoor classes in the field. And the amount of hours that Chickpea spent as a young dog in the backfield here playing with other dogs, or the other trainers' dogs. This was a huge part of my life, and Only about 3 or so kilometers from where I used to live when I lived here in Niagara Falls. I was actually living in Hamilton and commuting back and forth when I was training here. And this is actually only about a couple kilometers the other way down to Clifton Hill. So a lot of memories tied to this general area of Niagara Falls. But that's it for our time here in the Falls. Yeah, big part of my youth when I was a teenager coming up to Clifton Hill, and then a huge part of my life again when I moved back to the Falls and ended up working at the Keg and then Queenston Heights Restaurant in different areas. And then, of course, another chunk of my life spent here for a year and a half, coming up to work at the dog school. Yeah, so Niagara Falls has played quite a big role in my life.
Well, that pretty much sums up my life, at least till this point. Middle age. At 52, there's certainly no other way to look at it than middle-aged. I don't feel middle-aged per se, but it just felt like the right time to start looking back on my life. I've made a few little sort of autobiography mini documentaries on my life as a professional skateboarder, all the music studios I've had, all the gyms I've had, and for some reason I've just felt compelled over the last couple of years to sort of recap my life. The main audience for this is really just me. I'm making this so that I can look back on this in 20 years and have clearer memories of my past. And I think I would describe my personal philosophy as a hedonist in a way, and not in the sexual sense of hedonism, but in the sense that I've always pursued what made me happy in the moment. And if I was in a job I didn't like, or a relationship that I wasn't satisfied with, I moved on. It's hard to do that, but I always felt like being happy was more important than the difficulties of change and accepting changes in your life. And this isn't where I saw my life. I thought I would be married and grow old with Chris, and you know, in the back of your mind, you know that your pets will pass away, but that day is so far in the future that you don't think about it. And losing my American Bulldog Chickpea 6 months ago was incredibly painful, and I don't know if I'll ever fully get over that. And dealing with the separation of my marriage was painful, maybe less painful because I still live with Chris and we're still very close and we share this home together. But there will be a time in the future when we decide it's time to move on with our separate lives and sell this house. And I have no idea what the future is going to bring. I'm in the middle of this transition from running my own business as a dog trainer to now becoming a fitness trainer. And whether this is a viable career financially still remains to be seen, but I'm truly enjoying the career right now. So again, I've followed my heart to what I thought would make me happy, and it is making me happy. And outside of that, I plan for a lot of my life to sort of stay the same. All the things that I've always enjoyed, making music, skateboarding, athletics, all of that stuff has been consistent throughout my life, and I hope it will be consistent going forward. But I really have no idea what the future holds for me. When you have sort of an idea of what you think your life's going to be like, and then all of a sudden you're thrown a curveball, it's hard sometimes to recalibrate and think of what the future may bring. But in a way, that's where some of the excitement and adventure feels like it's going to come from. Is for the first time in my life, I don't really know what the future is going to bring. Like, I don't really have a plan in my mind of what the future is going to look like. I'm just sort of taking it day by day right now, and small goal by small goal, and we'll see what the future brings. But again, this just felt like the right time to sort of recap my life and look back at all the things I've done. And in a way, it brings me a lot of solace to see that I haven't wasted even a moment of my life. I have no regrets. Even the mistakes I made, I felt like the thing I was doing at the moment was the right thing to do. So I have no regrets, but it's time now to take a new path forward and see where that takes me.